Hey guys, it's 12 o'clock. Welcome to our fourth boost. We are thrilled that you're with us today. We are going to get started. This is number 4, and we're so thrilled that you're here. These have been so much fun. And today, I just want to say we have the most incredible rock stars, communication rock stars that are going to be sharing with you some really important information. I'm going to unmute these amazing rock stars, who I'm lucky enough to call my friends. Let me introduce you to them. They're from Metro West. They are on the board of the Metro West Conference for Women, led by Sylvia Ruiz, and I see Sylvia's on the line too. We're grateful that you're here, girls. Leaders. First off, I want to introduce Rachael Durant. Rachael is the Senior Account Executive for Inkhouse. I want to introduce Shannon Giordano. She is the founder of Serendipity Social Media. And let me introduce you to our website designer and guru, Allison DiRienzo, who has a partner, Jen Whittemore. And Allison is from Wolf Dog Marketing. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, girls, let's do this. Rachael, I want to start with you because businesses are trying to survive right now, and they're trying to tell a story, and it's critical to get in front of media, traditional media, social media. So let's start with public relations. What is critical to have in our public relations strategy right now?
So right now especially, but really anytime, the most foundational part of your public relations strategy should be a story. So that's how we think about communications at Inkhouse when we talk to our clients. And truly, storytelling is what public relations is. It's telling a story to your customers and clients about what products or services you offer that meet one of their unmet needs. So when we think about a story, the reason they endure overall is because they have someone to root for and against. And when you're talking about that in the PR sense, it doesn't necessarily mean like a traditional villain, but it could be, inefficiencies or a lack of something, and that could be the villain of the story, and your product or service could be the hero. So thinking about it through that lens and thinking about the emotional drivers behind what your clients and prospects and customers need really helps you figure out, how can I tell a story to them that is going to educate them about my product or service and highlight us as the hero in this particular story. And that's kind of how you want to think about the line of what your story looks like. So when we're thinking about our audiences, you really want to think about, where my audience is getting their information. Is it through social media? Is it through a specific social media channel? Is it through a specific media outlet? Truly diving deep into what your audience is reading, where they're at, and how you can reach them will help you ensure that you're telling the story to the right audience and getting the information to them. When I'm talking about the emotional needs of your audience, I think it's really important right now, where we're seeing a lot of fear, and that's a big emotional driver for a lot of people, and it's one of the most powerful. I think for businesses, something to really consider is, how can you lead with hope right now and not feed further into that fear? So where can you find that hopeful, positive message to be able to get across to people in a time when they're afraid, to help them see the light at the end of the tunnel? And another important audience that Jen, you had mentioned, were journalists. And I think it's really important for all of us to remember that everybody in media is also just a person. They're also just human. They too are having a hard time finding toilet paper at the grocery store. They too probably have loved ones who are ill. So when you talk to them in that lens of a person connecting with a person, and approach it from the aspect of, how can I help this journalist do their job at a time when resources are extremely limited, you'll be the most successful. The number one key that I can give you, and I hope that you take away from this, is to do your research about who you're pitching. If they just lost their mom to COVID-19, now is probably not the time to send them a pitch. If they're talking about how they're at home with their kids, it's not the time to invite them to a 2-hour webinar that they need to sit through. Really thinking through, what is the journalist needs and how can I help meet that? That will get your story across in the most authentic way, and truly help your business.
I love that. And that last point, research is so critical. And it's not just researching what the journalist is doing, but also what their business and what their media outlet is doing. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the like local outlets that you might be targeting are almost strictly covering COVID-19. Picking up a newspaper, watching the news, you'll see that. So just ensuring that if you don't have a strong angle, it might not be the time to do your launch. Maybe you want to take a step back and wait until things calm down a little bit. But if you do have that kind of an angle, thinking about how can I position it so we're helping to tell a story about our products and services. And again, that's not really leaning into the fear that people are facing. You want to try to lean into the hope and positivity wherever you can.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Shannon, let's talk social platforms, my dear. So I'm seeing a lot of social feeds that are very personal. They're taking a very personal look into the lives of their leaders. And why should we be paying attention to this, really? How can we take that personal approach to our social platforms, and why is that important right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jen. Before coronavirus, I think a lot of us who work in social media would always hear from clients and friends, like, I hate social media. Social media is so fake and surfacey. But, fast forward to now, we're all social distancing because of coronavirus. So social media now feels like the best way to stay connected, both as a business and on a personal level. It's gratifying to me because it's the world that I operate in. I think that there have always been ways to use social media for good, but I just think that now more people are believing that and living that. So with this COVID time, as a friend of mine calls it, the COVID, at first I think a lot of business owners were afraid of how they can show up on social media. I mean, honestly, like personally, how do you share products and services at a time when people are afraid of losing their jobs, or they're on unemployment, or losing their health? I mean, we're all nervous right now. So I'm seeing a great shift, though, that I love. So many businesses are sharing a more personal message, like you said. They're throwing away the stock photos. They're not scheduling messages all the time. They're coming instead with a glimpse of who they are as human beings and what's at the core of their business. Why do they do what they do? One example of this, I have a dental office that I work with, and we've been having great engagement by sharing what the dentist is doing. He's playing basketball with his son or making cookies with his daughter. One of the hygienists is sewing masks because her son is a doctor in Texas. Another has been planting an herb garden on her deck. And then one was she had a 7-month-old baby, and she's spending time with a lot more walks outside and sharing that at a time when she would have been working otherwise. So it's really simple messaging, and none of those messages have to do with the dental office, but they're giving a glimpse behind the scenes. They're kind of showing that we may not all be in the same boat, but we're all in this same storm together. And I think that we can all relate to that. With that said, though, I would suggest it's still really important to think strategically about your content and how you're sharing it. So building on the storytelling that Rachael shared, you start with your story, the core of your business, right? And then you create a plan that allows you to share that story in a personal, authentic way. You can still be snarky or funny or warm, kind, whatever your brand tone is, you stick with that. Try to weave in and share more real stories about what's happening in your business right now. I think that people are putting that fear aside of doing that, and they're really showing up. And if you're doing great things in the community, definitely share that. We're all hungry for stories of hope and kindness, the way we can build and share a community online that will support our businesses, but it also connects us personally to one another. And it's really the only way we're connecting right now, other than with the people we live with, which sometimes we don't want to connect with them. My best advice really is to think strategically and share personally. That's kind of my mantra right now. It really will go a long way to build your community. And even if people can't buy your products and services right now, they can share your journey right now, and then they'll be ready to buy your products and services again when we're all back out in the world.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you though, so I have an affinity to one social media channel over another, one social platform over another. Should we be showing up differently, for instance, between our platform on Twitter and what we're doing on Instagram?
I think so. I mean, I think you always, as a business owner, have to think about where are your where is your core audience living, and who is the core audience that's living there? So if the core audience that you have is different on Instagram than on Facebook, the messaging should be different. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people my age, middle-aged women, we're all on Facebook. We're all on Instagram too, which is great. But if you're trying to reach moms, you have to think about where are they going to be. If you're trying to reach journalists, to Rachel's point, you need to be on Twitter. So I think it's always a good idea. So you know your story, and then you also have to know the person that you're trying to reach and where are they living right now, and has their schedule changed a little bit too? You might want to think about when are they online.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, all 9 of our She's Local channels on 4 different platforms have stopped selling things. And you mentioned that, Shannon. We stopped selling tickets, exhibitor spaces, no sponsorships. And it's not because we're not hopeful that by the fall, we're all gonna be able to give big hugs and get back together, or that we are gonna shift and pivot and become virtual conferences. We're still working hard on what we're doing, but I'm noticing that it's not so much selling the products that you're talking about. So I want to jump to Allison. I see you. Allison, tell us, we have the luxury of doing that. We have the luxury of not selling things, but we don't have a brick and mortar space. So we're not relying on profits right now. As we're telling this personal story of perseverance right now, should businesses be selling, and how do we share a message that is authentic?
Absolutely. So building off of what Shannon and Rachel were saying, you can absolutely be empathetic right now and authentic to your community while still selling and showing up. So they're not mutually exclusive. You can sell in an empathetic way, and you can sell differently. So I think the way I like to think about it, and when we talk to our clients, is that people still have problems, and you still bring solutions and the magic to those problems. People actually also have new problems, right? Like things that they didn't have before that they are now kind of navigating. So even if you are sending them joy, and that's how you're solving their problem, because you provide entertainment, or you provide an escape, or kids activities, or it's because you offer a product that they really need to be able to work from home, whatever it might be, you can still provide that solution and not feel like dirty about doing that, right? Because your magic means something right now. So if for anybody on here needed permission, I mean, you certainly don't need it from me, but if you needed permission, give yourself permission to sell right now. You can still be a good person, a good human, a good empathetic brand, and be selling. And I have 3 tips that I would kind of impart on people to think about in order to do that. So firstly, and this is like an always truism, but right now more so than ever, is to always lead with value. So no matter what story it is that you're telling, or what kind of proof of concept you might be showing in your social media or digital marketing, you want to be leading with value. You want to be giving that value away. I like to think that's what we're doing here right now, and it really shows that you're a resource, that you are ingrained in the community as an expert, and you're showing up in your capacity. So leading with that value will then in turn provide proof of the value of your services or your products that you offer. So think about that in your sales equation. And then secondly is, what can you do to supersize or even enhance some of your current offerings? Could you be adding some DIY resources, some additional consultation time? Could you help people, if you sell a product, help them understand how to use it in different ways? So how can you enhance the value of what you're selling instead of like downsizing or downscaling what you're doing in a way to make it accessible? Keep what you're doing and think about what you can do to actually enhance what you offer. And then the last thing we would point out is that it might be tempting to deep cut your prices right now, but you don't want to hurt the long-term equation of the value that you offer. So either can you talk about different ways that people can engage with you? Maybe payment schedules you didn't have before, payment plans. Can you change the way that people pay up front versus at the end, or time periods? Or instead of taking away from your current pricing, could you add some new introductory ideas in? Is there some way that people could engage with you on a smaller level first? Could they try a product, you know, and see if they like it before they commit? So what are different ways that you can enhance your value? If you approach it with that idea of how can I give more in what I'm doing, I think your selling will feel more natural.
Yeah, perfect. That's fantastic. All right, it's right at 12:15 and we're committed to answering all of your questions. So this is how this section is gonna run. Thank you to Shannon, Rachel, and Allison. That's a lot of information. We want you to be able to ask as many questions as we can possibly fit within this 30-minute lunchtime boost. So if you would either virtually or physically raise your hand, and you can do that by going down to the bottom of your Zoom screen where there is a little reaction icon. You can give us a thumbs up, you can give us a clapping high five, and we'll come right to you. I will unmute you, you'll ask your question, and then our experts will answer, and I'll mute you again. Lisa, we are coming to you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm a little worried if I include some sort of a special deal right now during the crisis, that I won't be able to sustain it once whatever normal gets back to normal. Can you comment about that? For instance, we often diagnose what's wrong with a computer and we charge a flat $95 fee. We've decided we would do that for $75 now, which is not a terrible discount, but most of the people want us to do the work, and the diagnostic is part of a flat fee to do the whole service or the whole project. So we're not really losing money, but there might be some other area I won't be able to sustain once the social isolation and so forth is not a health hazard.
Great. All right, Allison, you want to take that one?
Sure. So it's something you said you're already doing, right? It's not like you already have that in place, this new pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be clear about communicating that this idea of still providing a service at this more accessible price right now is your way of contributing to the community, and that this pricing will expire on June 1st, for example, and that you really encourage people who have been thinking about having diagnostic testing done on their computer, or having a cleanup to run more efficiently so they can work more efficiently at home, or their kids can be more efficient online. Really encourage them sort of with that sense of urgency to the value, and letting people know that it has an expiration date. That way you're being very clear about the fact that you're doing this to be able to enhance what you're offering to people, but that long term, this is kind of something you're doing within the current climate. It has an expiration date, and that you'll eventually return to your regular pricing.
Allison, does that do two things? Does it show that you are sensitive to your customers' needs in this time of, in the COVID, like the Google,
in the time of
COVID time? And second, does it also bring potentially new customers when this sensitivity and this reflection of a discounted opportunity because of the situation that we're in? Could you essentially find people that you didn't have before?
Absolutely, to both. And I would say that the way to think about that for the second one, because I know part of your concern was what happens about sustaining it after June 1st, right? That was part of the question, is that once you have people into the fold, right, and they're experiencing your business and your service, they're going to be much more likely to continue to work with you, even if the price was to increase slightly after June 1st, or you could thank those people that did business with you during the time of COVID. You could grandfather them into this pricing. So you could keep them at the $75 mark. Sorry if that's not exactly what you said, but somewhere around there. And then after June 1st, anybody new now returns to that current rate. So you actually have some flexibility in terms of bringing the new people in, and then deciding from a business what is sustainable with that pricing. If you're able to increase the volume now then maybe you can keep those people to 75 and then you return to your regular pricing in June. I'm just your arbitrary date in June.
That's great. All right, Lisa, thanks for the question. Allison, thanks for the answer. Let's open it up to another question, please. Just give us a thumbs up or a high five and we'll come right to you. I'm gonna look on our second page. We have so many people that we have multiple pages. All right. Molly, we're coming to you. Oh, and then Terry, we're coming to you next.
Thanks. On the social media front, would you recommend any change in cadence or frequency for posting, seeing that we're feeling like more people are on the platforms right now than normally?
You know, that's a great question from my perspective. I mean, I think you always have to walk this fine balance between oversaturating, but then being there in the right place at the right time. So I would say when you authentically have something really cool to share, something really that pulls at you, that feels like I really want to share this, then I would share it. And if that is more often than you're doing now, I think you're safe. If it's less often, I think that's fine too. I think it's more about the quality of the content and the ideas that you're sharing than how often.
Can I add too, should you be looking at what other people are doing and then compare yourself to, I'm leading obviously at this point, Shannon, but you know, there's so many people that are getting in front of their audiences so well and so often. Should you try to emulate that?
I think it's a great idea to look at what I call the comps, sort of like if you were a real estate agent, right? And then the key though is to bring your flavor to it. So you're not mimicking exactly what that person's doing, but maybe they're sharing a video that you think, oh my gosh, that totally is awesome. Then you try to share a video to your followers, but maybe you mix it up a little bit. You add in something different that's going to be just yours, just you. So I think that looking at what other people doing to get inspiring ideas is a fantastic idea. And then not exactly emulating, but bringing your own flavor is a good idea too. I don't know, Allison, what do you think?
Oh, I love that. I would say now is not a time to blend in, right? Now is the time to stand out. If everyone is zigging, zag. Show up and show up differently than how maybe you've been expected to be showing up. Like, I'll be honest, Jen and I, you know, my business partner, we get like so bogged down in the weeds, right? We don't have time to show up on video as much as we want. We've been just like holding our feet to the fire and being like, don't care. One video at least a week, no matter how you think your hair looks, show up, right? That's like one other point I would add. And Molly, who knows I feel passionately about this, stop obsessing with how pretty your Instagram feed is and focus on the value of your content. People are not consuming your feed like a piece of art. They're going to consume the content in real time in their own news feed, on stories. So worry about the value of the content. Don't hold yourself back from posting because you're not sure if it's pretty enough.
Great. All right, Carrie, we're going to go to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. It's not so much a question, but the conversation that Allison and Lisa had about Lisa's fees kind of go into where I was starting. So I'll go back. I've noticed almost like the branding of all of this, and the tagline has been, "We're in this together." And I'm seeing it so much on television from every organization across it that I've gotten to be, yeah, how? So, but I realized that I think, Allison, you just tied that together, because given the example of what Lisa's strategizing now, Lisa could say, we're in this together, and then this is how we're in this together. We're offering this service to you. So maybe I'm either not hearing what all the big corporations are saying, or I can't really see what the tangible, what are you giving that makes me feel we're in this together. But examples like that really demonstrate that.
I love that. And I personally feel that people don't really want to hear, necessarily that like your brand is there for them. They want to hear what your brand is doing. I actually want to kick it to Rachael, because I think that her approach at storytelling, I think she can elaborate a little bit more on that thought about storytelling.
Yeah, so I think that everyone likes to hear those or everyone thinks that other people like to hear those platitudes, right? Of we're in this together, we understand what you're going through. And I think a really good example of where that is tone deaf is like celebrities, right? Saying we're in this quarantining together. Like it's very different to be quarantining in your mansion versus my 1-bedroom, 800-foot apartment, you know? So I think that that's where thinking through your story and your audience's emotional drivers can really help you narrow in on what is it that this particular customer needs to hear from me to know that I understand not only what they're going through, but I understand how my business fits into their life. So let's say, like for Shannon, I'll use Shannon as an example with her social media. If Shannon's saying to customers that she's trying to get to sign on to her service, I understand, like we're in this together. I understand they're having a tough time. That doesn't explain to them how she knows exactly how to bring authenticity and personality to your social media pages. But if she says to a business customer, I understand that you're having a difficult time with this problem of communicating during COVID-19. Here's what I bring to the table that offers that solution. That story will get through. And I think overall it's about intention too. So I've noticed there's a lot of companies doing good right now, right? Making masks, donating PPE, all sorts of things, and that's great. But I think there's a difference, and you can clearly see it between companies that do good in the community to do good in the community and companies that do good in the community to get publicity about doing good in the community. So my advice would be really examine your intentions if you're considering any of this. If you're thinking about doing good to get publicity, I would spend your efforts elsewhere, because I think that there are other ways that you can get publicity, and that intention is going to shine through in stories, and that intention will shine through overall on, you know, whether it's traditional media or social media. So really think about, am I doing this because I want to do it and that's the right and good thing to do? And if that's the case, then I definitely think you can, you know, be out with it. Obviously, we don't want to overly brag about what you're doing, but I think that it's fair to post about it and fair to talk about it, but really that intention should be there. And that goes back to Shannon's point about authenticity overall.
Perfect. All right, we have time for one more question. And you know that you can find these boosts on shoeslocal.org/boosts. You can watch and rewatch this one and watch the other ones. We have another one that's coming up on Friday, so we hope that you tune in. Anyone else want to give me a thumbs up or a high five and ask a burning question about communication, how to show up, where to show up? All right. Well, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you to Shannon Giordano, Rachael Durant, Allison DiRienzo. We're really grateful that that you shared so many tips and tricks and valuable nuggets of information that we are going to implement right now when we get off of this call. So join us again for a boost. Can I just get a shot of everybody just clapping and saying thank you? Yay, thank you. I'm going to post it. That's why I want you to show up with your clap. All right. All right. Thank you, guys.
And Jen?
Yes, please.
Just a quick thank you to everybody on the call for taking time out of your day and for engaging with She's Local. I'm just going to speak on behalf of everybody, but we really appreciate it, and you're why we do what we do and why we continue to bring accessible, relevant conferences and virtual platforms to women. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well said, Rachael. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day. See you Friday.